Now, former president of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, has called for a generational shift in African leadership, urging countries across the continent to deliberately promote younger leaders between the ages of 25 and 50, who he said are more physically and mentally equipped for the rigors of modern governance. The former president made the call on Thursday in Abuja during the International Memorial Lecture and Leadership Conference marking the 50th anniversary of the assassination of former head of state, General Murtala Mohammed. Reflecting on the demands of leadership, Dr. Jonathan recalled that while in office, he sometimes had no more than 2 hours of sleep in 24 hours, stressing that advanced age can limit the capacity to cope with the pressures of governance. Jonathan aligned his position with the spirit of Nigeria's Not Too Young to Run movement, which seeks to lower age barriers for elective offices and encourage youth participation in politics. Our director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi, joins us now to interrogate whether or not the problem is about age or political culture and weak institutions. Good afternoon, Dr. Amadi. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Happy to be here.
Of course. Now, is this about age or political culture and weak institutions, or is it all three?
Mostly political culture, mostly institution, but again, there's a place for energy and age. And again, President Jonathan is right in the sense that the executive demands of modern governance, perhaps one could say, calls for more intensity and attention. Yes, technology, AI as well may have simplified some of the drills of, policy research, maybe scanning through documents for hours and hours. But nevertheless, it has not reduced the intensity of attention required, executive attention, to solve modern problems, because governance, there's now an expansion of the public sector. Even though we talk about shrinking government, but you can see that policies, more and more policies are coming, more and more ideas for the public sector how to maybe encourage, stimulate private initiative to grow the economy, and especially third world countries, African countries that have a lot of uphill, hill to climb to get to convergence with developed economies, need to do more and not less. So the logic of age as a proxy for vitality is right. But again, age is not the same as vitality. We've seen, no matter what you think about President Trump and his policies, you would acknowledge that he's very ubiquitous everywhere. He's holding, multiple pressers and talking hours on end. So age, yes, but not necessarily. It's okay, give to the youths. We also have to look at experience. We look at, even at the level of leadership, competencies defined more as knowledge about problem solutions, what has worked, what has not worked. So we may talk about more educated leadership, more informed leadership, better exposed leadership, and leadership that has gone to the rigor of leadership preparation and less about young people. I mean, we've seen disastrous leadership by young people. So I would say, if you ask me, I would think that institutions are critical, but institutions are defined and redefined by leaders. And so I will be looking at that African leaders should be knowledge people, ideas people, must be people who are troubled, who are have commitment to seek for the public good and have the rigor to look at issues, make the right consultations, sit in hearings and briefings, basically high intelligence, high ethical conduct, and of course the culture also is important. So a bit of everything, but yeah, age could be a proxy for a lack of mental rigor, lack of energy to grapple with executive tasks, and lack of attention.
Indeed, Dr. Amadi, but what are the prospects for a generational shift in Nigeria's leadership currently, when you consider the fact that the same old politicians have always been there for decades, showing no sign of ever leaving the corridors of power for some time now? And where has that gotten us as a country?
Well, it has gotten us to a terrible situation we are today where development has failed, but it's not even likely to start. That's the problem. We are in a very difficult situation because not just that there's a failure of the past. I mean, you can manage a failed past, but then you see prospects, people are willing to restart and go in a different direction. And that brings the question about generational change. It's not just about leadership age, actually. If you look at the past generation, they still have a mixture of young people. There are some of our governors, especially the governors since 1999 till maybe 2007. Many of them were 30-something. Fashola, governor of Cross River State, Duke, Sososwan, at most early 40. Anyim became Senate President at 38. Balogun became Speaker at 38, 39. So it's not that this old generation are actually very young, relatively. But they are old because their ideas are dated, because they couldn't reinvent themselves, because they are not into politics with any fresh idea. And the reason is because our politics is designed to be a personal quest for wealth. And so as long as these guys see opportunity to make money, they are back the game. But you see, if we change the politics now, and there's little economic value or economic benefit for being a governor or a senator, and then people are challenged to really see it as public service and an arena for ideas, this old generation will move away because they really can't be comfortable. They don't have what it takes. So I think that the part of the problem is not just that the old generation is going to hand over. They're not going to hand over. They will continue because this is a project. This is career. This is economic. It's economy for them. Is that the tempo of politics, the new energy politics that we need, once it arrives, they can't cope. They have no ideas to sell. They can't convince the younger people who are asking critical questions. So a bit of what we saw with the obedient guys, last year, if they turn it into, not just supporting a particular person, but also as a restlessness against the status quo and the inquisition, questions around the way forward, then politics becomes unbearable, too hot for this old generation, then they will go away. But if you expect that they will come to a realization that they are no longer useful, which they are no longer, and they then hand over power, it's not going to happen because that power is only thing they know how to do. This is their feeding on the drip, and you have to take it off by force by making them realize that basically they have no foothold again in the public imagination because new actors have arrived and the questions they are asking are questions that these old guys can't offer solution to. So look at about those who can be president in 2027 and look at their age and look at not just their age and look at their worldview and look at their attunement to new things. Look at their set trap in the old way of transaction, of deal making. And so, as long as we play that game, they're going to remain superior. But if we change the game completely, make it about no peculiarities of office, no entourage, no limousines, no special, privileges, but all about talking to the people, town halls, meetings here, and they can't cope with that complexity and that demanding schedule. They will pull away. So I think we've made a politics too low energy that these old guys can easily fit in because there's no challenge for them.
Well, very well said, Dr. Amadi. Of course, it would be great to see that we'll get to a time when politics will not be about who can, get enrich themselves and see it as true public service. But now that you're saying that Nigerians should look out for people that have ideas in 2027, let me just take my hat off as a journalist for a moment and talk to you as a Nigerian. If I want to cast my votes and I'm looking at the system that has so much distrust, whether it's about the INEC, what the National Assembly is doing with the Electoral Act, and I look at all those factors, how do I still cast my vote and in a way that I still feel that like I contributed to my decisions and who gets to govern?
Yeah, I mean, look, okay, that's an interesting question. So you look at these despondents, look at everywhere it's not working, everything looks gloomy, and then I will cast my vote for that upstart, that guy who says, no, things are bad, who says, no, what, we need to disrupt this. So that's the point here. You see, you might not win the election. So when you look at the votes, and a significant percentage of voters are expressing contrarian view that they think the system is not working. And that's what we saw in Europe, for example, when you see the Green Party, the alternative AfD in Germany, maybe they used to do 3%. And suddenly they have 13%. That's not enough to form government, but that's enough to signal that many people are getting disoriented and disenchanted with the status quo. So you now see a trigger effect. The main parties, the mainstream guys begin to rethink and say, okay, which guy can match this expectation? So within their own, cadre, they look for smarter people, younger people, people who symbolize the new direction, the quest for new direction. That's what's not happening. So when people vote for, let's take, for example, Soshoware, for example, who probably is not going to go anywhere in the next election in terms of winning anything significant. But as long as there are also opportunities for alternatives, and reasonable, significant alternative, and people make those choices in good number, then you see a shift towards recognizing the inevitability of change. What has happened to our politics is too low energy because people don't even see alternatives. So if you are discouraged and disappointed with the status quo, instead of voting for alternative, because alternative is viable, you leave the voting arena. And that's why you have less than 20% in some elections, maybe 20% of registered voters voted, not of the population, registered voters. So what happens to the 80 or thereabout? Because they just don't care enough, either because they don't see that, why am I going to cast between A, B, and C? So I am also an advocate of having disruptors. You have candidates whose job is to model a different view of ourselves. And even if they're not likely going to win in that process, they signal that there's something else. And people begin to say, okay, actually there's an alternative. And once many people begin to move there, it triggers a reform impetus in the mainstream party. So yes, as a Nigerian who is not happy with what's going on, you can actually vote and use your vote to express, that you are disappointed and that you want an alternative. But the hope is that there can be somebody viable enough who represents that, different version of ourselves. And then you say, okay, I go here because that's what it represents to me.
Indeed. Hopefully we'll get more of those disruptors and alternatives, as you alluded to. Dr. Sam Amadi, Director, Abuja Schools of Social and Political Thoughts, many thanks for your input on that.